Hello, my name is Sina Woods, and my topic today is confidence. Interpreters all over the world are very different. There are interpreters that feel confident and then those that don't feel confident, and so I'll be discussing that today. So imagine you're going to an interpreting assignment and there is a break. So you go to the bathroom and you're washing your hands and you look in the mirror. Looking at your reflection, who are you as a person? Are you highly linguistically competent? Is your relationship with the deaf client really good? Are you someone that tends to be really creative or can speak very well or can sign very well? Sometimes I feel like you feel like you have to prove who you are as a person. But really, most interpreters, they have two different parts of their personality. Now, are those two parts, is one good and one bad? No. One part is humble, and the other part is confident. And it seems like these two parts may conflict, but really, they don't. Brandon Arthur recently wrote an article where he said that interpreters must know how to analyze themselves. And that is quite important because if they can't, their skills won't develop, especially as an interpreter in this field. So these two different parts of your personality, humble and confident, both of them can become a problem. Because if you're too humble, you're going to not feel confident and feel weak in your skills. Whereas if you are confident, too confident, you can become arrogant. Sometimes because interpreters are too humble, it is because they are not working on their own skills, and so they aren't improving and they start to feel disheartened about that. But if an interpreter is continuously working on improving their skills, then they're not going to have that fear of not being humble. On the other hand, you can have an ego. So you can either have an ego problem or you can be scared. And those are the two issues that can interfere with the two parts of your personality. There was another article about ASL that explained the importance of self-analyzing. For instance, not becoming isolated. So reflecting in your work as an interpreter is something that all of us should do. But what does it look like? There are several different ways to do that. As an interpreter, and several others went ahead and picked some of people who looked to be successful, and we watched what they did. So you can join an organization that is for observing your work. You can find an experienced interpreter and ask to mentor them. You can do peer mentoring and work in the assignment together to discuss ways that you can improve. You can pick a deaf individual who is really linguistically skilled and you admire their signing to show your work to them and ask for feedback. And lastly, you can go to workshops and conferences. Don't just pick any workshop or conference, but pick one that's going to meet your goals. You can also do an independent study, like pick one goal or skill that you want to improve on and use your research or reading or watching videos. Find people that are skilled in that, in what you want to improve on, and ask them questions, or you can discuss it in a group and really focus on that for an entire week to improve that skill. Some people use a life coach, or it's also called a personality coach, that helps you to develop confidence. And the last one is to use research, journals that you read to teach something to somebody else, and you can take what they are teaching and apply it to your own life. So the sign arrogance is from where? It is from people being ignorant about their own weaknesses. The successful people I was talking about earlier typically are aware of their own weaknesses, and that helps them to be successful. There are interpreters that go out on assignments that are arrogant, and the deaf and the hearing can see that, and they recognize it as something they don't like. Our clients need to see that we are confident in our own profession, and that we can do what we're here to do. When they see that, they will be relieved, knowing that the communication will be effectively communicated. Sometimes when you notice an interpreter that seems timid or they're not confident, the clients can be trepidatious as to if that is the right interpreter for them, and that's not good. Sometimes when an interpreter goes to an assignment, perhaps they have a really large audience, and somebody afterwards will come up to them and say, "Oh wow, I just absolutely loved your signing, it was so pretty," and the interpreter is feeling awkward, like, how do I handle that situation? Some interpreters are completely fine with it. They'll go ahead interpreting the music or the comedy or the dancing or whatever the assignment is related to. But then the attention is changed from focusing on whatever the performance was to focusing on the interpreter. And while that's my creative expression, some people don't like that. They don't want to accept the compliments. For example, recently there was a person who wrote this article, a Gallaudet professor, Caroline Olson, who wrote it with her brother. He's a lawyer, and his name is Jeremy. So they wrote this article, and it discussed expressive signing being equal to movement, and how it is not equal. Does that mean that all of the interpreters are going to want to do the creative signing? No, some are not comfortable with that idea. Most of sign language interpreters agree that it is important to be humble. Most of the interpreters are not performers themselves to start off with. It's really important to know your personality and to know if you and your creativity, and if you should be bringing that to your work. If that's something that you feel really passionate about, maybe that should become a separate hobby where you can express that in an appropriate place. Have you seen that journal? Because it was a good journal. There is a man who is he's been a performer for a long time, many, many years, and there have been several deaf people that have complained about him. He's an interpreter who loves performing in front of large audiences, and he's quite proud of his work. But the deaf community feels that he is not skilled. And that is just so sad, because he has such a large ego and he doesn't realize it, and it's quite embarrassing for him. I remember one time when I went to California State University, CSUN. They had an annual conference that many people went to. There was one professor, Laura Sims, that was on the stage, and this person was quite arrogant. Their character and their personality was all involved in one characteristic, and that was drama and showing all of the movements. And as we sat in the audience, we thought it was terrible, and her arrogance really showed in that moment. I've noticed over the news and gossip and whatnot, and over social media, many different places, that people have been discussing interpreting and that to interpreters' problems. People notice interpreters and want to say, hey, you did a really good job, that's really good. But should we be giving them those compliments and that praise? There are a lot of different opinions on this topic, and it's really a sticky issue. And so you're trying to figure out what all the different opinions are and how to mediate it, but should we be doing that alone? No, you can't do that. In the interpreting community and the deaf community, allowing them to discuss this issue and to if we should accept this or not accept this praise and what's right in the situation. How can we as interpreters find the perfect balance between humility and confidence? And that is really important to know individually, to know yourself, to keep learning and to be involved in the community. So remember a few things. Remember to ask for feedback from the deaf. Should you ask for feedback from the deaf? Many deaf don't actually want to sit down and give you all of this specific. And so if you sometimes going and asking them for it can not have the right effect. And so they're coming from the perspective of, yeah, you did fine, I'm done. Well, if you do get feedback, then you're very lucky and you should appreciate that. And sometimes if you don't hear any information, any comments about your performance, that can be good, because then that means that everything was fine and they had nothing to comment on and everybody did their job and you're good. There's a woman named Teresa that wrote an article discussing linguistics with the linguistics of hearing individuals and why there are problems and how interpreters are arrogant and how they typically like the attention and how that's a problem. Sometimes people don't like interpreters when they work, and they don't like interpreters because they're not satisfied. Well, usually this is an attitude issue. Some are not skilled, but if the interpreter has a great balance between humility and confidence, and their style fits the deaf hearing, hard of hearing, blind client, then usually it's fine. And interpreters are very diverse. Their personality, their characteristic, their skills, knowledge, experience, none are alike, and that is a great thing. Each interpreter has to find the job that matches their skills, and it's going to be different for every interpreter. Being qualified for that job is the important to respect all of the people that are involved. We need to focus on the communicating and facilitating that information. That's the point of us being there. And if we're scared or nervous, you need to push that aside and focus on the job to be successful. To have clear, successful communication, that is the most important part of our work. If we as interpreters are successful, then we will have authentic confidence. And individuals can communicate smoothly.